What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Strong Minded podcast. I'm your host, Jody Bryson, where every week I'm interviewing inspirational people. This week, I'm super excited to talk to Darren Reilly, who is a men's life coach and facilitator. Darren, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, bro. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome. So obviously we've been in contact for a little bit on social media, on Facebook, and I've seen what you've been doing, and I've been very inspired by what you've been doing as well, given
Thank you, bro.
your age. So even though I've seen a lot of you, we haven't necessarily had the chance to jump on a call and really get to know each other that well. So it's kind of hitting two birds with one stone here, because the audience will be getting to know your story, and so will I. So would love it if you would kind of give a bit of background information, background story as to what's led you to becoming a men's life coach.
Beautiful, man. Thank you, as I said, for having me on here. What's really led, I guess that's like the $1 million question, and I'll try to give the Spark Notes version. But for me growing up, we could say I moved from Ireland to Australia when I was a kid, and really, like, I feel like what ingrained in me was that need to fit into a new society or to a new culture. And that obviously shaped me in many ways, gave me many gifts, but also gave me many struggles as well. So I found, had a great childhood growing up, was able to travel a lot and had a great connected family. And then there came a certain point, I remember in school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I feel this is a reoccurring theme for a lot of men of today. There's that sense of maybe disconnection to their path or to their purpose, or I feel it's like that for most young people. It's one of the most difficult things, is trying to find your path or reason or meaning. But I always knew, like, deep down, I wanted to do something different, something that actually gave me more meaning to life, maybe something more unorthodox. And growing up, football, obviously, as we said before, played a massive part in my life. It's only now I really see, like, how pivotal so much of the lessons that I learned there, and the core embodiment, the core teachings, and the core disciplines have actually transferred into what I do now. And my dad, I was lucky enough to have my dad as my coach throughout that period, and that was like a beautiful part, having that mentor there to guide me in that area. But then when it came to, like, the more emotional side and those aspects of life, I guess I was very close with my mom and very close with my sister, and my brother played football as well. And you could say I probably learned life more from my mom, which was beautiful. I learned so many great lessons. But obviously, as we know, like, there's a fundamental need in a lot of young males to also have that guidance. And in many ways I did, and that was beautiful. But I also felt that when it came to that period of a transition from boyhood to manhood, I felt that maybe I'd lacked that in many ways, or well, I was unaware of it. So my parents went through a relationship breakdown, and my mom wanted to completely change her life. So she decided to go to a Tony Robbins seminar. And I was about 20 at the time. I'd left school, didn't really know what the hell I was going to do. I was kind of just going with the ebbs and flows of life. And but I always, again, as we say, like, it's like people like ourselves, you feel called to something greater. You feel that you want to do something more, but you're not quite sure where to channel that energy, or to have that direction. So all I remember, man, is going to this seminar, and obviously that took a big toll on me at that time, that the separation, and it would have been quite a traumatic experience for myself or my inner child. And then we went to a Tony Robbins seminar. We went to UPW, and just completely, like, blew my world open. Like, it was, I remember being there and thinking, like, fuck, this is what I want to do. I don't know how, I don't know why. But I felt it was like, yeah, you finally feel something like that deep within, or a spark saying, this is fucking, this is part of your path. And I like to call them, they're like the golden Easter eggs in your life, or in yeah, your path, that they're guiding you the way, that the bits that light up your enthusiasm, they're actually showing you what you're here to do, or you're here to be. So yeah, I decided to join his mastery university. I didn't have the money at the time, but I thought, well, fuck it, I'll get a loan, and I'll figure out a way. And I did that. And my mom actually did it as well. So the two of us went on this awesome journey of going to like Date with Destiny, and we went to Fiji and did life and wealth mastery. But still, as I was doing that, like, I was very into photography and I was very creative at the time. You could say I was very much channeling more of my feminine energy at that period of time. And yeah, I didn't have any directional ways to channel it. And I was in a relationship at the time, and you could say it was very codependent. So it was two halves trying to make a whole, and I'm so grateful for that relationship, because it taught me so much, and it actually brought me back home to myself. But in that period of time, it was, yeah, there was all these different reoccurring themes that were coming up to be looked at. And as I went on this journey, that relationship started to break down, and I probably knew in my core that it was time to end long before it actually ever ended. But like, my fear of being alone, and I utilized that relationship as a way to validate me as a man, or validate my own masculinity. And yeah, and then as I went on the journey, actually, I remember there was this moment in time, and I referenced this point a lot, where I was at a Date with Destiny. Now, in Date with Destiny, they delve deep into the relationship dynamics and how important polarity is, for one to hold the masculine pole and one to hold the feminine pole. And we have both energies, but at our core, like, majority of men are masculine core individuals, and majority of females are feminine cores, right? And sometimes trauma can get in the way of us masking that core. But Tony Robbins did this embodiment practice, and he said, all right, to all the lads in the room, he was playing like Braveheart music, and he said, I'm going to scream out a word, and I want you to just scream whatever you feel, right? And I remember him, just like big Tony Robbins, like raising his hand in the sky and screaming freedom. And I shit you not, man, it took me like right back to the football pitch, when, you'd be losing a game, but you're like, fucking come on, it's like that spiritedness. It's something that can't be explained, but only felt. And I remember screaming, man. We did it like probably about 10 times, and my shoulders went back, and I felt so strong in myself, and I had tears rolling down my face. And it felt like I'd remembered who I was, it was a pivotal moment in time. And yeah, I guess that was that reference point of, like, you could say, truest masculinity in life, rather than I was able to channel it on the pitch. But then when it came to life, I was like, I didn't know how to channel that, or I hadn't embodied it. So that was the beginning of that. Then after that, went through a relationship breakdown, and did like another coaching course. And then after that, man, even after all that work I'd been doing, I went down into this deep spiral. I had serious amounts of anxiety, social anxiety. Look, I wouldn't say depression. It could have been, but I felt like it felt like a dark night of the soul. Like, it literally felt like I was dying. And if you want to say like the archetypal stories, it's like, well, the boy must die to give birth to the man. So it felt like I was starting to initiate into who I'm actually supposed to be. But it was actually only tearing away all of what was not me, so then my truest self could step forward. So yeah, man. And then plant medicine came into my sphere, and a couple of months after that whole process, I went and drank ayahuasca. And I remember going in, man, I was scared shitless, as anyone would be when they go on this. But I remember I was just in so much pain, and I'd done research, and I was like, I need this fucking thing. It's all, I didn't want to go and take medication or whatever. And I just needed something that could help me. And yeah, bro, like it was a big shift. It was a tough journey, to be honest, man. Like, it had felt like I confronted my ego. So I got stuck in a loop. And what the ayahuasca was showing me was like that my anxiety was me being stuck in a loop. It was me being stuck in my head because I wasn't in my body. I wasn't in my heart, you know? So I literally, it felt like I was going crazy. And one of the facilitators came over to me and he's like, brother, just look at me. And he's like, breathe. And then the moment I began to breathe, I realized, fuck, it's just my mind. You know, my mind is the thing that's causing me my suffering. You know, and if I can breathe and come back to the present moment, I can remember my mind is always telling me what's wrong. But and that it was like it's the beginning of this separation between like the ego mind and I guess like who I actually am on my truest self. And yeah, man, delve deep into plant medicine. As I started to go on this journey, I had all these books coming to me about male initiation and male rite of passage, reading books like King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which I'm sure you've read, and Iron John as well. Oh, okay, it's a good book, man. I recommend it. And Iron John and a few other different books. And I was trying to discover, well, what the fuck does it mean to be a man, right? Because I always felt connected to spirituality and to that essence. But then there was also loved football and these things, and I didn't have a reference point of like, well, what does it mean to be a healthy man? You know, can you bridge these two worlds? Can you still be like a fucking gorilla but also like the Buddha? You know, like it's a balance. And yeah, man, I dove deep in, did a lot of plant medicine, ayahuasca mushrooms, also did 5-MeO DMT, which was like a complete awakening, you could say, like full connection. I really viscerally experienced like the oneness and really seeing like, yeah, that we are all one, and but we are all like the best lesson I ever learned too, man, was like the man I was looking for the whole time was actually myself. In all the mentors and all the things, like in all the people that I was looking for, I was looking for me. And I realized all the things that I love and all the things that light me up is exactly who I'm supposed to be. And I'm not here to be anybody else but myself. And yeah, and then through the journey, you had a visceral experience of self-love. And I was able to build off of that. And yeah, brotherhood started to form, and I started to see how everything I'd learned through my life was exactly what I needed. Healed and let go of things from the past through different psychotherapy with psychedelics, and now on a mission to help our fellow brothers come back home to themselves as and become the best version of themselves. Yeah. So as a team, yeah, together everyone achieves more. So, bro, that's the spark version of my story.
Matt, it's you've got a very powerful story. I mean, I think getting into into personal development so early on, like in your life at 20 years old, like actually going live to see Tony Robbins must have been
Yeah.
like a transformational experience. I think Tony Robbins is one of those kind of, you either hate him or you love him kind of
Yeah.
characters. And
Yeah.
obviously you loved him and you kind of fell in love with the idea of betterment. And like, to unpack your story, because obviously there's a lot there that you told me, that kind of moment where you were, you know, shouting from the top of your lungs freedom or whatever word you were using, and you were really stepping
Yeah.
into your true power. What do you think kind of uh suppressed that power that you had within you? And was that something that you had suppressed for a long time? Were you, like, during childhood, were there times where you felt more powerful? Or talk to me a little bit about
Yeah, for sure, man. It definitely would have been suppressed. What suppressed it in many ways, man, I feel it's just fear. Probably fear of what other people thought, you know, molding myself to suit maybe society's expectations or to fit in at school, um, to be a good boy, you know, all those sort of things. And yeah, it's all these stories, I guess, that I created from situations. Um, but again, like I do feel everything works out exactly as it's supposed to. You know, it's um like I'm grateful for those experiences because it also enabled me gifts to be able to read social situations, to have empathy for others, to also, yeah, to be compassionate towards
that.
others, and Yeah, I guess like that sort of charisma and social situations, and to be able to build rapport quite easily. But obviously that's suppressed because it was like, well, I didn't know who I was because I'd built this character to fit in,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, but I felt like on the pitch, like on the football pitch, there was a container where I was able to channel that energy, and I built that in my mind. Like I remember my dad used to kind of send me out. My mentality was like, yeah, it was like, as we all know, we're trying to like make our father proud, or make the coach proud, and I always wanted to be like the best player, and I would look at the best player on their team, and I knew mentally that like I fucking had them, you know, like it was that thing. But also like then once, and but that was like, and the drive I had for that and the skills that I built over that period of time was, I was so driven in it. But um but then it got to that period of time where it was no longer coming to fruition. So yeah, look, I feel again, it was a boy, you know, it was a boy who hadn't been shown how to be a man. And it was like in that moment, I was able to, in many ways, channel that energy for something greater and for something more, and to have that space to be able to access that was extremely powerful. And yeah, in many ways I stood in my power, but then I also, you know, didn't after that too, you know, it took,
Mm.
because it's like, well, what grows the masculine? Well, challenge actually grows the masculine. So those periods of times where I was going through some really challenging experiences, you know, that energy is pretty much self-trust and a connection back to yourself and trusting your own core and coming back to your core. And I feel like it's only through challenges and trials and overcoming them and coming out the other side knowing that you have your fucking back, you know,
Mm.
that I feel is what builds that energy, you know. And that's obviously where a fundamental rite of passage and assistance of mentors along the way, to not guard you from challenges but actually allow you to step forward into them, is yeah, it feels like it's courage, man.
Mm.
It's not the absence of fear, but you're learning to step forward even in the presence of fear, you
Mm.
know. And that's what I feel, yeah, it really comes through.
Yeah. I can resonate with a lot of your story. Obviously, like I played football um, from a very early age as well.
Yeah,
Um, my mum and dad separated when I was 3 years old. So
yeah,
I've kind of had that experience of my parents separating and subconsciously dealing with a broken heart from a very early age, which I think it's difficult because as a young boy we're not necessarily emotionally aware enough, and we're not kind of, if we're not in a situation where we're given that attention and we're given that validation of like, are you actually all right? How's things going? You know, and I
yeah,
think especially at a young age, as boys, we're kind of, there's an assumption that we are okay, and I think with when that assumption is that we're okay, it's kind of something that we assume to be true of ourselves as well.
yeah,
But for many years, I don't think I was okay at all, and I
yeah,
I invested all of my passion, all of my heart into football, into playing football,
yeah,
and really it was just allowed me to step into, and this is what I talk about quite a bit, is my victimhood, right? Is my victim mentality, where where deep inside I was this wounded boy, this wounded child who just wanted to prove himself to the world,
mm,
and the way that I did that was on the football pitch. um
mm-hmm,
so when I'd have those opportunities taken away from me, you know, left on the bench, or you know, just not given necessarily the praise or encouragement, and some often criticized as well, because you know, looking back, I was trying to play as an individual, but at the same time, I was, you know, there's that desire or need to show like exactly what you can do on the football field.
Hmm.
So for me, I was always like the showboater type. I was always like getting the tricks out and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and that was a huge part of my game. So like telling me not to do that was kind of like saying, don't don't play football. You know what I mean? Like the way that you express
Yeah.
yourself on the football pitch is like the way that who you are as a person is your personality. So that was another arena where I felt like I was being attacked and being judged and being criticized,
Hmm.
because I wasn't
Hmm.
playing as a team member.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think those kind of experiences kind of heap onto one another, to form your character and to form, uh, well, what you talk about a lot as well is like the shadow self.
Hmm.
And I resonated a lot with your experience, not necessarily in the same way that you kind of went to do your psychedelics and stuff like that, but you know, I experienced a great deal of healing last year when I went to Malaga. I went in to Spain for 6 months, and I just felt
Yeah. Well,
this need, this desire, just to completely isolate and be in solitude for that period of time. Obviously, it was, you know, escaping the UK weather to a place in Spain where the weather was beautiful. You know, able to
yeah.
go to the beach every single day, like walk barefoot in the ocean. And this is, you know,
Nice,
something we'll
man.
come on to is like the allowing the feminine energy to
Yeah.
heal you, because that's for me
Yes.
fundamentally what it is. It's
Yes.
the power of love. And we'll get onto that, but you know,
Yeah, it's important, man.
sorry.
It's important. It definitely is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
important.
So that experience of just taking myself away and being there with myself and practicing self-love and self-care, was so important, because I, you know, when we experience trauma, when we experience abuse and stuff like that, is the mind comes up with solutions, protective mechanisms for that
Mm.
problem that we were
Mm.
facing. And my the protection or the solution for me was, well, I'm here in the world on my own, and I've got to do everything on my own. So that was the story that I was living out. You know, I did very well at university, did well with my academics, and I was on the path to becoming successful, despite the fact that I was, you know, very miserable, because I wasn't allowing anyone into my heart, into my space.
Mm.
And I was still very much bitter, angry, and resentful about the childhood
Mhm.
that I had had. So that time away in Spain, you know, really helped me to start opening my heart. That's when I got into the men's work that I'm doing. And you know, as you mentioned, like the books that you said, the what is it, the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, uh, is a book that
Yes.
I've been meaning to read. But for me, there's been a little bit of resistance there in terms of fully stepping into the men's work and the men's community. And I think that's because the wounding that I received as a child was a lot to do with my dad, but also to do with my stepdad and the way that he was when I was growing up. And
Mhm.
I think letting go of those things and accepting that people are human beings and that they're not necessarily in the right place or the right shape to be that leader
Mm.
that you need in your life,
Mm.
no matter how painful that is. I think it's something that you have to take responsibility for, and also awareness that holding on to that pain isn't really benefiting you, and it's certainly not having any negative impact on the people that have hurt you either.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think stepping more into that men's work has really helped me to heal my relationship with the masculine, which is
Mm.
something that I want you to kind of talk about now is like, what is your relationship with the masculine, and what does the masculine mean to you?
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing, bro. I think your story is super powerful, and I know a lot of dudes will resonate. And yeah, like I feel like, man, it takes a lot of courage too to step forward and be honest with what you're saying. So yeah, and I feel, well, man, relationships are masculine. Well, that's a healthy masculine. It's like, well, you're stepping forward even in the exposure and being honest. It's not, I feel like masculinity, we get caught up in this idea of like, oh, we need to be the ideal man. It doesn't fucking exist. Like, we're human. So and obviously, like, there's the terms, the alpha and beta, that we can get caught up in, and I've gotten caught up in it myself in the past, but I came to realize, like, that's still trying to mold yourself into something externally. It's taking you away from who you actually are, just being you in the moment. So yeah, man, like, relationship to the masculine, I feel, as you said, like, doing the work, like healing the father wound is so important. Like, I know for me personally, that was something that was lurking in my shadow that I needed to confront. And people get this idea, right, that the shadow is some like dark, dragon or something, which in many ways, like, if we look at human nature, like, yeah, it's understanding we have the capability for mass destruction, but usually it's just like, as you're saying, man, it's a little boy or a little girl that just actually needs a fucking hug, needs to be told that they're good enough, that they're worthy. And that really is, it's like that dragon turns into just like a little child.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel healing that father wound, and because our father is our direct line to our masculinity. So in any ways that we can, maybe that is, some people's fathers aren't around anymore, maybe they passed away, and personally, I don't know what that feels like, but it still is about taking ownership, because at the end of the day, the only one we're hurting is ourselves. So taking ownership, and whether that is, going back, and we can still say what we wanted to our father, whether that's writing, whether that's going to their grave, or if they are alive, it's going and, having the courage to be honest. It's being honest about looking at, yeah, also like thanking them for what they did give us, because they also gave us some incredibly good lessons. Like, we can often so much focus on the negative, but if we look hard enough, there were some incredibly good lessons that came from the situation too. But then also being honest about, yeah, what fucking hurt you, and doing it in a loving way, not slaying the person, but because that will reflect back. But it's yeah, being honest. And I feel, and I know for me personally, that was extremely powerful. I did that last year, and I just felt this dormant like pit in my stomach. So I went, my dad lives in America, and I went over and just spent one-on-one time with him, and I just was honest, and I burst into tears, and was it was beautiful, man. Yeah, it was beautiful, because it took a lot of fucking courage to do that, and it was difficult, and my mind was playing the stories about how I didn't want to do it. But I see now how powerful it was, and yeah, I feel that's so important, looking at that stuff and healing it and letting the past go. It's like, I'm training in psychotherapy, and we call it like the tale. There's a story that we're playing over and over again, until we look at it with love and look at it honestly and see the lessons that it gave us, and realizing, well, fuck, it actually shaped us into the person, because maybe we got those experiences so we knew what we didn't want, so we could give the experience to maybe our child, or to our fellow brothers around, and be that person that we wish we had, because it does shape us. So one of the best quotes I ever heard is, you become the mentor you wish you had in your times of need.
So true.
And I love that, man. It's so true. And it's like, well, you see now why we were gifted that pain, because it actually has shaped us, our purpose, and why we're here. So yeah, man, fundamentally, like, healing that initial formative relationships, because what it always stems down to, man, is relationship issues. So a relationship with self, which then reflects with relationship with other. And well, I first formative relationships are the fundamental ones. So going back and looking at that stuff first and cleaning it up, and then also creating that relationship with self, learning to look at yourself honestly and going and seeking help, if from someone who does embody that self-love, and they can just hold space for you to come back to your innate wisdom, your innate guidance, and realizing you're not perfect and you're not fucking supposed to be, and actually starting to build that relationship where no matter what happens, if you play a fucking bad game in football, it's not the end of the world. You can pat yourself on the back and say, you know what, man, I still fucking showed up. I still got on the pitch, and that building that relationship where it's like, now you're your teammate, you're that coach putting the arm around your shoulder, and saying, you're doing well. Or sometimes you need to give a firecracker up your ass, if you need it, so
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, man, the way I like to say it, for me personally, from my perspective, and everyone has their own perspective, but I feel healthy masculinity is having the capacity to be both strong, like have that fire, but also to be gentle, to be kind and compassionate, to be empathetic, to have a heart open. It's like one of my mates says, and I love it. He's like, do no harm, but take no shit, So it's like, it's that gorilla and the Buddha, it's the balance of the masculine and feminine. It's like what we call the middle path. You're not choosing mommy or daddy anymore. Like, you're no longer fighting up here. You're kind of more centered and at peace. So, yeah, look, there's so many factors, but I feel breaking down the stigma of that you have to be this strong, all the time. It's like, no, that's fucking heavy. You're allowed to feel your emotions. Emotions is beautiful. They're actually our access to ourself and our innate wisdom. And it's actually through the feminine that we gain the wisdom to then use our masculine to take action. So yeah, and it's a beautiful release, and it's okay to cry, and it actually builds that emotional content. It builds passion. It's through those moments that, like, man, when you wanted to win so bad, like, you could almost cry, like, it's emotion. It's emotional content. That is actually what we're looking for. It's having meaning to life. It's feeling the beauty of life, and feeling it all, and being open to feel it all, because I feel that is the human experience. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I mean, for me, I've always been a bit of a crier.
Me too, bro. Me too.
Probably one of the, like, again, it comes down to that experience of feeling like boys don't cry, or that men shouldn't cry, is like that inner rejection, inner judgment of, I'm crying, I'm weak, I'm I'm this, I'm that, which
Yeah.
I think, again, it builds onto that shadow self. So it depends on sort of our experiences and what's happened to us in our life as to
Yeah.
how big that shadow self really is, and how to go about tackling that. Because I think for some people it may simply be, you know, to a Tony Robbins seminar, or it might be doing psychedelics like you've done, or for me it's been more like years and years of therapy in the gym. Like
Yeah.
that's been my kind of form of therapy, as well as like going to counseling, and obviously, as I've said, going away to Spain for 6 months, but also
Yeah.
becoming a lot more aware of my triggers and what emotionally triggers me, because I've always been a highly
Yes.
emotional person, and for me,
Yeah.
it's the masculine is about stability and being grounded. So one of my biggest struggles in my life has been that integration, because I'll either be very rational, very logical, a little bit detached and cold, or I'll be extremely emotional, like a little petulant sort of child that can also turn into like a very energetic, like friendly kind of child that wants to show everyone
Yeah.
love, right? It's a child at the end of the day. So for me,
Yeah.
learning to love the inner child, but also to treat the child like to, if you have the analogy of like there's the man that stares back at you in the mirror, and you've got to let that person be guiding and holding the hand of your inner child, rather than letting
Mm.
your inner child lead the way or leave the little child, inner child behind. So that's what for me is about, sort of stepping into masculinity, stepping into manhood, um, whilst still sort of embracing that youth like childlike nature that makes us innocent and makes us pure, and
Yeah.
allows us to find our joy and our fulfillment. And I think that's so important, because I see so many men that go down that path of, right, they're trying to be that man in the mirror, but they're leaving behind the inner child. So
Yeah.
they achieve all of the things that externally they think are going to make them happy. They've got the great job, the great girlfriend, all of the stuff in their life, but fundamentally, if they're not giving attention to the little child inside of them, then they're never going to feel that happiness and fulfillment that they
Yeah.
want. So I think the we live in a very kind of, I don't know sure what it's like in Australia, but definitely here in the UK, it's a very perfectionist culture.
Mhm.
And for me, it's just about moving forward and trying new things. Psychedelics might not work for someone else, but um,
Yeah.
gym might, or vice versa. No, you've just got to keep trying strategies to keep moving forward and to keep healing, I think, and be consistent with them. I think we lost you, down. Oh, there you still there,
Okay,
brother?
hang on. Let's double check. I think it says my internet is unstable. Hang on, I feel like can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I've
Okay, you
got
can hear
you.
me?
I can hear you.
Okay, sick. There we go. We're back. I was like, oh shit, hopefully it didn't cut out.
Lost you for a moment. Yeah.
Oh,
So
perfect. There we go. We're back.
yeah. Um, so talk a little bit about like what advice you would give, what advice you normally give to men. Like, what is the main challenge you find with the men that you work with?
Well, man, advice actually is something I sometimes try to refrain from because
Mm,
my main philosophy really is that like you are your own guide. That it's actually coming back to, it's facilitating a space where like the individual is now coming back to themselves and starting to go, well, actually, what is it I want? What is my core saying? And they're starting to trust themselves again. So, but personally for me, man, like I had a mentor come in who runs the plant medicine spheres, and he's been very much like a father figure to me. He a beautiful balance. Like the dude is a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He grew up in South Africa, like very rough, was in gangs and things like that. So he has that hardened, aspect to himself. But he reached a point where he just couldn't take it anymore. He was almost ready to just tap out because of all the pain, and plant medicine found him, and he delved deep into it. So he's built that beautiful emotional side of himself, and I've watched him cry with gratitude. And I feel for me, having an example, someone who embodies that, and something who gives you permission, to do that, especially an older male. I'm so grateful that I had him come into my life. So I know personally for me, seeking a mentor in many ways, or at least just a mirror image of what you seek to embody, and spending time around them, and really that's so important, right? Because they actually talk about in Iron John that when a boy is born, he's already attuned with his mother's body, because he's getting all the nutrients, and he's been in there for 9 months or however long it is. But when he comes out, he has to learn to attune to the father's body, to the way of the masculine. So that's why in ancient times they used to take the boys out hunting, and it was in those times where he would bond with the father, and he would learn and attune to the masculine frequency. So obviously, if you haven't had that period, it can be very difficult to be attuned to that aspect, and uh, and that's okay. Many men are in that scenario as well. So I feel personally, taking time to go and spend time with someone who embodies what you seek to embody, and that's really important. Spending time around healthy individuals. It doesn't mean that they're perfect. And this is one thing I went through is, we all put our fathers or our coaches or our mentors on a pedestal.
Yeah.
But actually taking them off the pedestal, because they'll always disappoint you, because they're not perfect. They're not this godlike figure. They have their own shadows and they have their own things. But actually being able to witness them go through that and overcome them and be honest about them allows you, and it gives you the permission to go, yeah, I'm not perfect as well, but that doesn't mean I can't love myself, and that doesn't mean it's not okay. I'm fucking human. I'm not some god, so I feel that that's incredibly powerful. And spending time with the males that have positive reinforcements, and not always positive, because you need to look at the deeper stuff, but are willing to do the work, and willing to embody, but also willing to enjoy life as well. Like, it's not always has to be this deep, heavy work. Really, at the end of the day, like, what we're all looking for, as you said, man, we're all actually looking for, through that work, we come back to, I feel, the childlike innocence. It's like, I love how Socrates once said, like, there's one thing I know for sure, is that I know nothing at all. It's like, you're looking at everything as if it's brand new, when we were a child, and we were just learning, and that can be beautiful as well. And integrating that, it doesn't mean that when you're a man, from my perspective, that you get rid of that boy. You're saying, no, like, it's creating a space for it. It's just knowing, is it time to take responsibility here and step up, or is it time just to have a bit of fun? And it's finding that balance, I feel, which only you can find yourself. I really feel it just comes back to self-awareness and coming to know yourself and your innate strengths and weaknesses, and yeah, and starting to be okay with that, and starting to love all of it. And that's a journey in itself. I don't know if we'll ever reach it, because we'll always have aspects, but that, I feel, is the journey, bro.
So for you, like, what helps you to step into your childlike innocence?
Childlike innocence. Sometimes, man, it's just hanging out with my mates, and like, we have a good laugh, like, we still make fucking jokes from the in-betweeners and shit like that, like, like, and pulling accents, or just having fun, or spending time playing board games with my family, and yeah, man, even in this relationship I'm with right now, like, little things where, yeah, you're playing a board game with them, and you're just joking around, and yeah, I guess as well, personally for me, man, still plant medicine in many ways has really cleansed that, because you really see, like, the world with new eyes, and it feels like you're in some magical land when you're on these things. And it sounds so unorthodox, but it really does show you, and obviously the science is backing the power now, but it shows you how amazing this life is, and how magical it really is. And I feel it does come back to that child that really did believe life was that way, and you remember that it actually truly is.
I think there's definitely things that you can, like, definitely reconnecting with your childhood, and with the things that you enjoyed doing as a child, especially the stuff that you shut down. So for me, like, doing the YouTube videos, and being
Yeah.
like in a place where I'm kind of performing in a certain way, Obviously I'm trying to be real in my YouTube videos, but you kind of know what I mean, like center of attention. What
Yeah, man.
kind of giving yourself the experiences that either that you wish you had, or that you kind of judged yourself for having when you were younger, I think is
Yeah.
really important. And I think that like it just changes your entire paradigm, your entire mindset, to a point where you just start enjoying stuff that you never thought you would enjoy before. Like
Yeah.
walking in nature is something that I do every single day. Like as a child, I was like, this is so boring. I can't think of anything worse.
Yeah, man.
But now I just see beauty wherever I go, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I
So
think,
true, man.
yeah, and what you said before, in like with having an honest conversation with your father, I think, you know, I did that. Well, I've had honest conversations with my father, for, you know, for probably 2 or 3 years, I guess, as I've sort of gone on my self-development journey. But it was only really in the last two weeks, actually, very recently, that I had a conversation with my father where I really kind of just let go of all of the judgment and
Yeah.
all of the stuff that I was carrying. And
Awesome, man.
I broke down into tears. He broke down into tears. We came together, and we healed. Like we healed that relationship. And I think when you're navigating the wound, you're navigating that father wound. Life can be so um, just so like heavy.
Yeah,
And
volatile.
you've got that feeling, that sense of anxiety all the time, because you're not just allowing yourself to. You there, dude? Yeah, you cut out. You there, Darren? Hello?
I am indeed. Yeah, still
Yeah,
still
yes.
here.
I think, it creates so much anxiety when we're like holding onto those things. So I think having that conversation has been so pivotal for me, and it sounds like it
Yeah.
had a big transformational impact on yourself as well. So I think for anyone out there who's listening, like letting go of those judgments, and allowing yourself just to express yourself in the way that you want to express yourself, and not feeling like you have to has to be perfect. At the end of the day, when someone has hurt you, you have um, the ability, or you have I don't know the word, but I think it's important for you to express yourself in a way that is authentic to how you feel. So that might look like anger, it
Yeah.
might look like sadness. It doesn't have to be a particular way. I know for me, it was, my dad's a very kind of quite a reserved person. He's very difficult to be angry at, because he's very calm, and he's very, very quiet. Um,
Yeah.
and for me, expressing my anger to him was very difficult, because we always again, like, I resonate so much with your story in terms of being very charismatic, and almost mirroring everyone's energy, rather than standing firm in your energy, and how you feel. Um, and I think
Mm.
for me, it was such an empowering experience that, yes, my dad was calm, but at that moment I was very angry. I was very, very rageful, and that was me expressing myself in my truest form. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, that's beautiful, and massive hats off, because I know myself and how much courage it took, and it's like that there's probably some dudes out there who are sitting in that position now, and there's a lot of fear that comes up when even the sort of doing that. um but I feel like we can both speak from personal experience just how actually powerful it was, and how needed it was for them as well, and
Hmm.
um yeah, as you said, you come back to your core, like you're speaking your truth, and that's so important. And man, it was actually real interesting. I'm reading this book at the moment, The Five Love Languages, and it talks about obviously words of affirmation, all the different love languages. But they were talking about how there was this guy Brian or whatever, and his father never gave him the words of affirmation that he was looking for on his sports field or whatever. So what he actually started doing, so he was sitting with the guy who wrote this book, he actually started saying first to like his parents, both his parents, like, I love you, you know, and then he'd say like, I love you and thank you for all that you did for me. And then would actually start saying to, like, he started saying to his dad that he was proud of him. And he started saying, giving what he wished he had. And then the dad slowly started giving it back to him, and then would apologize that he never did it, you know. So it's actually, I feel that's you're taking the ownership, and you're putting the ball in your court, and you're taking responsibility, which I feel is the difference between the boy and the man. So the boy chooses to point fingers because look,
Mm.
he didn't know any better, but at the end of the day, the shift happens. Is like, okay, now I'm going to take extreme ownership for my reality. And look, I can't change what happened, but I can change my future. And by doing that, I have agency, and it's empowering then. So, and then you start to utilize or grab the experiences that you went through and say, well, actually, they're fucking my gifts, because they're I wouldn't be who I was, or I, you know, I wouldn't have the knowledge or anything that I have, or have be able to facilitate spaces or to step into my purpose without them. So yeah, taking the ball in your court and starting to actually, I know I did the same. Like, I started to just say to my dad, like, I appreciate you for all you did do as well, you know, like, I thank you for this, I thank you for that. And like, now he's starting to, you know, a couple of weeks ago I had a bit of a breakdown, and you know, opened up to him again. And then now he's ringing me once every week, you know, and actually starting to create that relationship. Even though he is far away, you know, in another country, it doesn't mean that we still can't have that close relationship. So I know for me how fundamental it is. And actually, like, one of my mentors said this too, is he said, it doesn't take just the parents to raise the child, it takes a community. So you can still fulfill your needs through other mentors or through other people, you know. It's not just relying on one figure to be that for you, like dispersing it through a group of people. And that's where I feel like the men's work and the men's group really come in, because you still can have that need filled, you know. It may not through your birth father or your
Mm.
biological father, but that doesn't mean you can't have other role models or other people who can still love you for who you are and accept you and give you and fill you with that need that you're searching for. And in many ways, that'll allow you, it gives you permission to then love yourself and then step forward more as an embodied, authentic self. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's so important, and I think it's that finding that balance really between um like looking for people, other people for support, um, but also, you know, allowing yourself to take ownership for yourself and look after
Yeah.
yourself and be
Yes.
independent, because I think it's important not to you know, place that lack of love that you didn't receive from your father onto somebody else, onto a mentor, or onto a coach, or just onto a friend. Or, you know, you've got to take that you know, understand that you're a man now, so you need to treat other men as your equals, even though they might be further ahead the line than you are, and you can look up to them and you know, get support from them. But I think it's at the same time, it's knowing your own value and knowing your own worth, and knowing that you have a distinct, unique path um, in the world that nobody else can walk except for you. And in a certain way, it can be a little bit heartbreaking, but I think that's part of, as we've talked about already, it's part of the hero's journey, is that, you know, we're born alone, and we die alone, and, you know, we're going
Mm.
to have people in our lives that are going to let us down. We're going to have people in our lives that are going to love us and support us and encourage us. But the one fundamental person that will always be there is ourselves. And so I think stepping into that, looking for guidance, and as you say, like, it's not about relying on one person. It's about understanding that everyone, like, there's lots of different people that can you can learn from. I think there's
Definitely, man.
something to learn from every single person in this on this planet, if you look hard enough. um,
That's it, man.
and I think that's when it comes down to, um, you know, letting the letting the inner child have that curiosity about the world, and about people, and allowing yourself to receive help, love, and support, which is, you know, something that I'm still struggling with. Obviously, our shadow doesn't just go away overnight. It kind of diminishes in size
Yeah.
as we learn to heal it, but it doesn't ever
Never
probably
goes away,
completely go
you
away.
know. There's always another layer, and that's
Mhm.
fucking okay.
And that's exciting in a way as well.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I love what you said there as well. Like, also, we're gonna let people down. You know,
Yeah.
we're not gonna be perfect and things like that. And there's times we all make mistakes or whatever. But like, I feel, yeah, as you're saying, man, too, is like part in many ways we own up to that as well. And yeah, none of us are perfect. And but yeah, like I always come back to too, man, and this has been a massive shift for me, is like, it's a lonely reality when it's just us. You know, when Tony Robbins talks about that, and we talk about it in my sphere as well, where, you know, we're suffering because it's me, you know. So when we can shift out of that and like serve something greater than ourselves, we'll go, you know what, hey man, how are you doing, you know? Or like, start, you know, obviously it's important to love yourself so much so that it overflows into the lives of others, you know, to look after yourself and do the work, as we're saying, but also start to get out there and be part of a community, be part of something
Mhm.
more than yourself. And because yeah, it is all about relationships, because when we feel loved and we love other people, we thrive, because that's what it's all about. I feel is this
Mm,
is we do thrive, and then we feel more confident in who we are, and we know that
mm,
we have a support system, we know we have people, you know we have a team, and we're not doing it alone. It really makes life a lot easier. That doesn't mean there's not going to be challenges. Like, fuck, I have a fuckload of challenges still at the moment, and I'm still learning, and thank fuck I am, because it'd be boring if I wasn't.
mm.
So yeah, man, I that's what I really feel.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, as you were saying that, like, for me, one of the things that I'm working on right now is, um, unconditionally loving people that let you down, you know, that hurt you in some way. And I think that's so important, because we're not taught the art of forgiveness. We're taught about dependence, and codependence. Um,
Mm,
and I think it's so important to be able to love someone, that isn't necessarily part of your life, or is going to be a fundamental part of your life, and just
mm,
to want them to do completely the best, and not to hold on to, the fact that they've hurt you in some way. Because I think everyone has their different path in life. Everyone has their standards, their own expectations. They're operating from a certain set of values and beliefs. And, you know, for me, it's accepting that, you know, when people let me down, or, if I let other people down, you know, that is, you know, that's part of life. And sometimes, those things have happened. Sometimes you've been let down for a reason, and that's kind of teaching you something about, um, not just that person, not in a judgmental way, but it's teaching you about the relationships that you have. And sometimes the person you've got to look after the most is yourself, and understand that, you know, you deserve to be treated in the way that you want to be treated.
Yes.
And, you know, that can be hard because it means sometimes letting go of people that aren't necessarily bad people, you know, that can be really good people, but they just might not be the right people for you.
Definitely, man. And I really feel like what you're saying there is like healthy boundaries. You know, many
Mm.
of us growing up, we weren't taught how to set healthy boundaries or what that even means. And yeah, it's like they're saying unconditionally loving and accepting, but also, you know, being willing to tell people the truth. You know, if it hurt you this way, it doesn't mean that you're gonna like condemn them in a loving way, just being honest and saying, look, this is how it made me feel. I would really appreciate next time if you could do it this way, or didn't speak to me that way, you know, or more respectful. And I feel like that it really is like coming back to your guidance system, because that's where I feel like the warrior, right? That's that masculine part of us,
Mm.
has that respect for ourselves to say, look, man, like, you know, I don't stand by this, or this made me feel that way, you know. And people generally, if we go up there with like love, because I've set boundaries from like pain and it never fucking works out, it just causes more chaos. So
Mm.
like saying it in a loving and compassionate way, but also like letting them know that, like, you know, you deserve the respect, as much as like also being open to receiving boundaries from other people as well.
Yeah.
And that's like a fine balance too. So yeah, man, I feel that is really fundamental, you know, learning to have that love for yourself and respect for yourself, and then starting to communicate that, as you're saying that, yeah, look, if someone did make you feel that way, like, it's actually your responsibility to say it in a loving way, because you're actually not serving that person and affording their growth if you don't tell
Mm.
them. So
Yeah.
and we can feel, I know for myself, I haven't spoken in the past, and I could feel it, like it's like eating away at me internally. And then as soon as I say it, I feel so much fucking better. And even if the outcome, you know, didn't turn out the way, at the end of the day, like, you know, you spoke what was true for you. So
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely something to work on. Um, I agree with you. I
for
think
all of
I,
us,
I
man.
tend I tend to um, take too much, uh, not ownership. That's probably the wrong way to put it. But I tend to like um, accept the hurt and just try to heal it myself rather than communicate to the other person, which is something that I probably need to work on a little bit more. Which is great. Why to have these kind of honest conversations, and sort of communicate in that way, which is, you know, very open and, you know, non-judgmental, because it allows you to learn more about yourself and the way that you're operating, the way that you're seeing certain things. So I'm so very grateful for this conversation that we've had today, Darren.
Oh, thank you,
I've
bro.
definitely learned some things from you that I'm gonna kind of take back and try and implement into my own life. And I hope you've taken value from this conversation too. Um,
Definitely have, man.
awesome. Please let the audience know where they can kind of get in contact with you if they want to learn more about what it is that you do.
Yeah, man. And I'd love to finish off before I do so. For any of my brothers out there, or for anyone listening, is like, you're fucking exactly who you're supposed to be. You know, like all the things that you love and all the things that you go through and everything is fucking perfect for you. And so yeah, the key relationship is building that, and learning to love that, and accept that, and that, like, yeah, not to be so hard on ourselves, and to actually start to, you know, realize we're all doing the best that we can. And yeah, the more we can have that respect and love for ourselves, and remembering who we are, the better life will start to flow out. So look, obviously that's what I work through, similar to Mr. Joe here, with men and within brotherhood. We're all about, myself and my brother Seth, we're currently running retreats, and we've got our brotherhood podcast as well, and going to be doing one-on-one psychotherapies and a new brotherhood academy coming through as well. So if you want to reach out and find some more, you can find us on Spotify, similar to Joe here, on the Brotherhood podcast. Also Brotherhood Coaching, or at Brotherhood Coaching on Instagram. I'm Darren_Reilly. We also have, you can go on the podcast and find any of the groups, which is fantastic, and we have some free Facebook groups there. So if you feel the call, reach out, bro. And also Mr. Joe here is doing amazing work as well. So you have plenty of support. There's plenty of men's work facilities around. So yeah, have the courage to reach out, because it's not weak to ask for help. I know the amount of times I fucking put my hand up for help, and how glad I am that I did, because A, we can't do it alone, and B, why the fuck would you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing those resources. I think it's, obviously I have different men coming on this podcast, and I think it's important for us coaches to to collaborate and to come together, because there's so much healing, so much empowerment that needs to happen with men. And for me, more is always more when it comes to support and help.
Yes.
So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening to this conversation today. If you are a man, then do feel free to come and find me at the Strong-Minded Brotherhood Facebook community. Go check out Darren's community as well, which is equally awesome. And I look forward to talking to you all in the next episode.
Thank you, brothers.